What's up, guys? This is the network back with another video, and today we are talking about lease takeovers and auto credit strategy. This is where your file moves from theory to real life, and you start using actual vehicle accounts to add age, payment history, and credibility to whatever file you are building, whether that is a personal file, a CPN file, or a business file. When you do lease takeovers, right? You inherit payment history, you inherit account age, and you get installment reporting that changes how lenders see you overnight. So pay attention, because this is one of the fastest ways to add long-term verified data without opening brand new high-risk accounts. First off, let me explain the concept in plain terms. A lease takeover is when you step in and assume someone else's lease. The original lessee transfers the remaining months and the payment responsibility to you. And because that lease already has months of on-time payments attached to it, the account reports to the bureaus with that history intact, which means you are not starting from zero. You are buying continuity. And that continuity is exactly what raises the depth of your credit file: more time on an account, more in field data for scoring models, and more trust for underwriters. Now, people worry about the legal stuff and the transfer process, which is valid. You need to follow the paperwork. The leasing company needs to approve the transfer, and you will submit identity documents and proof of address just like a normal application. But the upside is huge when it works, right? So this is not a hack. This is a strategic play leveraging real world asset-backed reporting. Before you chase listings, make sure your file is actually ready. There is no point applying for a takeover if your monitoring dashboards show inconsistent data, or you have less than 3 active trade lines, or your scores are below the point where lease underwriters will look twice. In general, you want a consistent pattern for at least 30 to 60 days, no recent inquiries, and 3 or more trade lines with positive history. So if you are missing those things, do that work first, because the takeover approval rate correlates to how stable your profile looks from the lender's perspective. Think of it as pre-qualification exercise. You want the best possible odds before you submit an application. When you prepare your supporting documents, be precise. Match everything in your master identity sheet. Your address on the driver's license needs to match the utility or phone bill that you upload. If you are using a business entity to apply, have your business registration and EIN ready, and a recent bank statement under the business name. A lot of these companies will spot an inconsistency in a second. So make the story simple and consistent. No surprises. The more your paperwork looks like the real world, the faster they accept it, and the faster that lease history appears on your file. One of the biggest advantages of lease takeovers is the speed of reporting. The manual says accounts can show up in bureau feeds within 15 to 25 days once the leasing company reports the transfer. So if you time it right and your file is stable, you can see substantial score movement in the first month, which is wild when you compare it to waiting months for new trade lines to age. And naturally, you are accelerating the clock by inheriting already aged activity, and that is why this method is so powerful for people trying to level up quickly without opening new risk-heavy accounts. So where do you find takeovers? Look at reputable lease transfer marketplaces like Swapalease LeaseTrader and trusted private exchanges. Sometimes people even list in the auto sections of classifieds, but stick to the marketplaces because they have built-in verification, and they generally work with the leasing company to process transfers. You want remaining terms ideally in the range of 12 to 24 months, and monthly payments you can manage under $700, because that gives you enough time to collect age without being locked into an unmanageable payment for too long. You are not buying a car, you are buying a data source, so stay conservative and realistic on the payment and the term length. When you find a deal, first contact the current lessee, confirm that transfers are allowed and that the leasing company approves them, then call the leasing company directly and ask for the lease transfer packet. Even before you commit payment, this packet tells you the transfer requirements, identity verification steps, and any potential transfer fees. Sometimes there are early termination or transfer processing fees, so budget for that. It is rare but visible in the packet, and you want to avoid surprises. Once you receive the packet, fill it carefully and submit the proof. They request driver's license, proof of residence, and sometimes proof of insurance. The company will perform their underwriting, and if approved, you sign the transfer documents, usually electronically, and then your name is attached to the account. That is the moment the history starts reporting in your name and not the previous lessee. A tangent about brands and reporting frequency: not every lessor reports the same way, so target brands that have a reliable record of reporting to all 3 bureaus. Think of premium brands like BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, Infiniti, and many mainstream lenders. These are often reliable reporters, and their data tends to push quickly, whereas smaller captive lenders can be inconsistent. So when you are filtering listings, prefer leases from large finance arms and big automakers that have an established reporting cadence that reduces the chance your new trade line will only show up on one bureau or arrive late in the feeds. It is simple risk management for reporting consistency. Now, there is also the business angle. If you want to scale this into funding, then consider structuring the application through your LLC and using a personal CPN or your personal file as a guarantor. If your goal is to move into fleet-style asset leverage or secure commercial vehicle lines, certain lenders offer business leasing and commercial auto finance that accepts business applications backed by an individual guarantor. This is how you transition from personal profile strength to business funding while keeping your liabilities compartmentalized. A lot of the recommended lenders for business auto are Ally Business, Ford Commercial, and GM Financial. They have specific processes for business applications, which you should research in advance and prepare the documentation they require, which includes proofs of income and business financials. So plan accordingly if you are going to go that route. Let's talk about auto trade line vendors too, because not everyone wants to assume a lease directly. Some vendors offer aged auto trade lines or reporting partnerships where a trade line can be added to your file through Metro 2 entries or partner relationships. And this is where your data furnishing setup from earlier becomes useful. If you already run a furnisher, you can report positive auto payment histories in a compliant manner and scale trade lines across files. But if you are buying trade lines from brokers, do your due diligence, check the vendor track record, ask for references, and verify that they can provide the exact Metro 2 codes and the chain of title. If you cannot verify their process, walk away. Vendor quality matters more than price with trade lines because one bad provider can create inconsistencies that are hard to undo. A practical example to make this real, imagine you find a 2-year remaining lease on a luxury sedan with monthly payments of around $500. You confirm the lease is transferable and the leasing company requires a driver's license proof of residence and a quick underwriting check. You submit everything under your file and within 3 weeks the transfer is approved. You now have 24 months of historical payments, some of them 12 months from the original start date on top of that. The account reports as an active installment loan with a balance in the 20,000 range that immediately deepens your file, and lenders see a high-quality installment trade line with lengthy payment history that is huge for approvals and for being able to request higher limit products in the weeks that follow. This is how one strategically selected takeover can change the trajectory of your funding options in under a month. Timing and patience matter even after the takeover completes. Do not start flooding applications. The file has to breathe. Wait at least 90 days for bureau syncing and monitoring before you push for higher tier credit products. Use the first month to confirm reporting across all 3 bureaus. Monitor Credit Karma, Experian, and other monitoring tools, and take screenshots every time a new account appears or a score moves. These screenshots are your audit evidence, and they are important if you ever need to prove the timing of a transfer or respond to a sudden inquiry or dispute. You want an organized folder with date-stamped proof, so when you scale to multiple takeovers, your record keeping becomes the difference between clean operations and chaotic troubleshooting. Maintenance after takeover is simple but strict pay. Every payment on time. Best practice is to schedule your payment 3 to 5 days before the due date. This prevents accidental late marks and protects your payment history. Remember, even one late can undo months of gains. Focus on keeping utilization low by maintaining the installment accounts and balancing your revolving accounts under 10% utilization. If you start applying for new cards immediately, your utilization could spike and artificially lower scores. So keep a conservative approach for the first 90 days while the new trade line settles into the file. A quick tangent about lease to ownership transitions. Some people ask if they should buy the vehicle at the end of the lease. The answer depends on your strategy for funding and asset management. If the goal is long-term ownership and the asset appreciates or retains value, then buying out the lease can make sense. But if your primary objective is age and trade line strength, you can take the leased payments as long as they are reporting and later exit the position before buying out. If you buy the car, you convert the account, but you will still keep the payment history. So think in terms of the business outcome you want, not just the emotion of owning the car. For those who want to combine this with data furnishing, once you control a furnisher, you can augment reporting by ensuring the payment statuses are synced and accurate across Metro 2 entries. You can report matching payment dates and statuses that align with the leasing company's report, and this reduces the chance of conflicting entries across consumer reporting agencies. That is advanced coordination, but it is powerful when done correctly because you control both the front-end acquisition and back-end reporting consistency, which is what institutions do at scale. Risk management, never ignore it. Always verify chain of title on any portfolio or trade line you buy. Never assume that a broker's word is enough. Get documentation, request proof of ownership, and confirm that all consumer consents are signed and stored in your binder. You must be able to show the history and the permission to report or reassign any account that is the legal and ethical backbone of this method. Do not skip consent because without it, you expose your operation to disputes that are expensive and time-consuming to resolve. Finally, the scaling play. Once you master 1 or 2 takeovers and you have at least 90 days of consistent reporting, you can start layering additional assets using the same rules. Wait 90 days between major moves, request modest increases, and build toward higher tier approvals over time. This is not a sprint, it is a controlled scale sequence, and the more methodical your approach, the more predictable your approvals will become. If you want the checklist, the transfer packet template, the recommended marketplaces, and the sample folder structure where we store confirmations and screenshots, we posted all of that inside Patreon and in the pinned resources of the Discord. That is where we do live walkthroughs and answer questions in real time. Telegram is no longer reliable for this level of support. Follow daily updates on Instagram at the network link. And if you want personalized help message, the network on Discord, we walk people through this step by step. The method is educational only, and you should operate ethically and with compliance at every step.